place is incredible. We eat here, the Cherry Farm Hunting Club, a lot. We're over here quite a bit. We're going to be broadcasting live here today. We don't have internet at the Cherry Farm. Hadn't since Tuesday morning. Jimmy, it's been kind of fun being off the grid, but hell, I hadn't watched the news. I've been watching reruns of the Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah, doggy. I think I've heard that the over and under on the number of times Uncle Jed in a typical episode of the Beverly Hillbillies says, yeah, doggy. Or one of these days, I'm going to have a long talk with that boy, talking about Jethro. And
oh yeah,
but it's been fun. But we've got a lot to cover today. Again, let me tell you this: Hot Stone Restaurant here in Wynne, Arkansas, right on Highway 64, across from the Walmart in Wynne, right when you get over Crowley's Ridge. Open Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. They have great food. They have the fire pizzas. I mean, oven fire pizzas are fantastic. We love the pesto pie. We eat the spaghetti. We eat the egg rolls. They have trivia night on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. We have tried to win it multiple times. MJ was with Audrey and me last time. We came close. We've been second a couple of times. One of these days we're going to win it, but it would help if we could get there before 25 or 30 of the 60 questions have been asked. We get second. If we got here, Jimmy, and maybe we could have you on the phone with us from long distance, we could win it. But look, if you want to meet people and network and see people in Wynne in this area, this is the Wynne Country Club. This is where everybody is. This is the networking place, whether it's business, hunting, it's all the same. Hot Stone Restaurant here in Wynne, Arkansas. Be with you till 5 o'clock today. Got a great lineup. And Mitch Davis will be joining us here at about 3:05 talking about basketball. Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, is going to be on for about 20 minutes with us at 3:30. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast over in Atlanta, will be on with us at 4 o'clock Central. Gordon Ford, of course, at 3:30 will join us. And hopefully Doug Dean will give us a call in and maybe a few surprises along the way. But lots to talk about, Jimmy, here on the Sunday afternoon Sidelines.live wrap-up show. Basketball last night. Real surprises. Well, we know that Kentucky stomped Tennessee in Knoxville. And I may be wrong, but I think I'm close. I know that the all-time record, Kentucky 157, Tennessee 75 in basketball. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Tennessee has more victories over Kentucky in basketball, men's basketball, than the rest of the SEC combined. But hey, Kentucky is catching fire here late in the season. But Jimmy Hodge, let's go ahead and get started with wrapping it up, talking about last night's SEC action. And Mitch is going to fill us in on the Memphis Tigers, but a lot to cover. But Jimmy, go ahead.
Well, it just seems like in the last a week and a half or so, Tennessee starting to fade just a little bit. I mean, they just came out flat last night, and Kentucky just jumped all over them. You know, Mintz, the transfer from Creighton, you know, he hit a couple of threes early on, and it's like Tennessee had never adjusted to the fact that he was in the arena. I mean, I think he hit his first 5, and from that point on, everybody around him just really kind of caught fire just with their overall play. And, you know, Tennessee was never in the game. I mean, I would say the first 5-6 minutes, you know, they kind of traded jabs and so forth. You know, it was 1-2 point game. And then, like I said, Mintz hit a couple of threes. And then, you know, Tennessee just didn't shoot very well the whole game. And then Kentucky also, you know, got their transition game going and got some threes just by just getting spaces in the open court. But, you know, Mintz was the guy that really sparked them. And, again, Kentucky was up like, I think, 15-16 at the half. And they really cruised the rest of the way. Tennessee never made a serious run at them. And offensively, Tennessee just didn't look good in any aspect of the game.
You know, bottom line, Kentucky, you talk about, and you've been right on from the beginning. This may just be a bad crop of one and done for John Calipari at Kentucky, but tradition matters. And when you're late in the season, you're struggling and you're being crucified by the media that covers Kentucky. And that is a large group of writers, podcasts, ESPN, you name it, not to mention the local people, Mark Story, the Lexington Herald, and all. You realize you better kick it into another gear and start finding excuses to win. This happens every year. Start getting close to the SEC tournament, Kentucky begins to typically play their best basketball. A lot of people are going to start saying, hey, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to pick Kentucky to win the SEC tournament. And I mean, that won't surprise anybody, but the way Alabama's playing and the way Arkansas is playing, when they can play, do you see Kentucky going in and winning the SEC tournament this year?
I don't see it. They had a big lead against Auburn last week. They were behind for most of the first half, and then in the first, I think, 9 minutes of the second half, they went out on a 30-11 run against Auburn, went up 12 or 13, and Auburn came back, tied the game, and had a chance to win. And once again, I think with about 45, 50 seconds left in regulation with the score tied, Mintz hit a three to, give them the lead, and they were able to, hang on and win it. Although Auburn, actually had a chance at the end, but they just still have those bad stretches. And then on, I guess it was Tuesday, maybe against Vandy, they go up 17-4 against a Vandy team that's won 2 SEC games. Vandy comes back, erases the deficit, ties the game, never could go ahead, but they had their chances up to the very end. So, I mean, this is a Kentucky team that is playing better, but I mean, let's be honest about it, the bar wasn't very high. And then yesterday, without question, was their best performance of the season. Tennessee had a really bad outing at LSU last week, and then won comfortably against South Carolina at home, which they should. But this is a rivalry game for Tennessee, and for them to come out flat and play like they did, I think it has to be pretty disheartening for Rick Barnes.
It really does. And Mitch Davis is on the line with us now. And Mitch, last I heard from you, and sorry I was about 4 hours late on that. You were looking for some recommendations on where to eat in Oxford. And I was thinking City Grill, City Grocery, and Proud Larry's right up there on the square. You can walk to them. But I guess you found somewhere to go. And by the way, they do have a Crystal now in Oxford, but for a long time they were a food desert down there when it came to grenades with shrapnel, a bowl of mud, and a box of fuses. That's what we call Crystals, with onions and cheese, a bowl of chili, and a box of fries. But Mitch, you were at the Egg Bowl of basketball, and those two schools have such a love for one another. Let's talk about that game. You're on here with Jimmy Hodge, Rob Brown, and everybody out there listening, including Sam Haney, Andy Williford, and Rob Shoney Anderson on the Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show.
Yeah, so actually, I've been to Oxford a quadrillion times. I always eat at my same old places. But Soulshine is closed now. Old business is under new ownership. So I was looking for something new. So we ended up eating today at McEwen's right there on the square. We did a brunch there. Great place. He had a great cheeseburger this morning and really had a lot of fun down there. Talking about this Ole Miss Mississippi State game, this was a game that Ole Miss could not afford to lose, and they lost. They didn't just lose, they got destroyed in a very embarrassing fashion for Ole Miss, and now they face the harsh reality that they're out of the NCAA tournament. They had to beat Mississippi State, and I heard Jimmy talking about can Kentucky win the SEC tournament? I'm gonna tell you right now, I wrote an article last night and into this morning talking about the SEC tournament. Guys, get ready. There is 13 schools that could win the SEC tournament this year. When you look at 1 through 13, because, obviously the 14 being Auburn, but they self-imposed.
Self-imposed penalty. Yes.
and you know, I'm going to miss Auburn in the SEC tournament. When you look at those
So
from
am I.
1 to 13, anybody who's playing from Wednesday through Sunday in the SEC tournament, you can honestly and truthfully make a case for them to win the SEC tournament championship game. And I think that's a big thing for Craig Sankey, is to have that parity and that closeness amongst the teams. And now we've got superstar coaches. I mean, you throw a rock in the SEC and you've got a superstar coach at every school. You know, Tom Crean at Georgia, and you have Stackhouse at Vandy, Cal at Kentucky, and so on and so on and so on. When you have that level of coaches, it's hard not to get excited about SEC basketball.
Well, it always is. And Jimmy was making great points about the Tennessee-Kentucky basketball game yesterday up in Knoxville. How does Tennessee come out flat in a game like that? That is a rivalry game, big time. And yeah, Kentucky leads the series 157 to 75. But again, Tennessee has beaten Kentucky more than anybody. I think the rest of the SEC combined. If we have a stat man out there, Rain Man, an idiot savant, well, like me, look that up and let's find out if that's correct.
Well,
but yeah.
Well, you know, Rob, even though Tennessee has beaten Kentucky the most out of the SEC schools, they still have a massive losing record to 155 games that Kentucky has won.
To 75 for Tennessee.
74 that Tennessee has won.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's no, you know, obviously there's no comparison to Kentucky in any other basketball program in the SEC. But when you have that big of a gap, you know, it's really not even a rivalry. I know Tennessee's had some success here recently, but when you look at the overall spectrum of it, Tennessee really hasn't been close to Kentucky. And what's crazy is they have their best teams within the last 2 to 3 years, and they still have yet to sweep Kentucky under Coach Rick Barnes and under head coach John Calipari.
Well,
I think they swept them last year, I believe. Oh yeah, but in the regular season, and I think they'd beaten them 6. Well, not now after that loss yesterday, but I think they'd won 6 out of the last 8. I mean, it was at a point where Calipari would joke to Barnes, "I wish I'd have never recommended you for this job," because he has had some more success against Cal than anybody else. And really, I can't even imagine what the Tennessee-Kentucky record was before Ray Mears came in '63.
Yeah.
I mean, it must do. I know
there
Tennessee could not have won double-digit games by the time when Ray Mears got.
Yeah, but you know, Jimmy, a blind squirrel will find a nut every now and then, and that's kind of how it's same with football. You know, Tennessee football owns Kentucky. You know, owns Kentucky historically, and Kentucky's gotten lucky the last 4 or 5 years because Tennessee has been so down. But, you know, when you look at Kentucky, the teams that really compete with Kentucky are Auburn, Alabama, Florida. Those 3 teams, man, they've had our number. SEC.
But LSU has kind of played pretty well against them in the last 30 years.
Really, nothing really matters until you get to March. You know, once you can lose a few games here and there in the regular season, and that's okay. But once you get to March, nothing matters until March. And so, you know, when Tennessee fans want to say, "Hey, we've got a great team, whatever." All right, how many Final Fours? How many Elite Eights? You know, and when you start going down the list, 0, 0.
Well, they've gone to the Elite 8. They lost to Michigan State, I think, in 15, I believe. They've been close a couple of times, and of course, you know, when they had the teams in the 60s and 70s. They had some teams that would have gone a long way under the current format, but back then you only had one team from each conference that could go until 75. But no, they haven't. And Alabama's never gone to the Final Four. And that's kind of surprising when you consider they're the second winningest team in basketball in the SEC. Now they've been really close. They really lost a really controversial game to the 32-0 Indiana team in '76, which if you go back to the documentary and even look at the video of that one, there Alabama's got a lot to be upset about still, you know. But they have Ray Mears and C.M. Newton were really the two, I think, most influential figures in SEC basketball in getting it to where is today, because those were the first two coaches really to make the decision. That, of course, was CN being a former Kentucky player, but they were the first two coaches to come into the league and make the decision that they were going to challenge Kentucky. And the league has just benefited greatly since, because you've had a bunch of teams from the SEC make the Final Four since that time. And again, it was largely because those two gentlemen, really played a big part in it. A lot of people don't realize until really uh, uh, the late 50s that you had a lot of assistant football coaches that were head coaches of some of these SEC programs, as laughable as that might seem now.
Well,
Yeah,
Kentucky
and
basketball.
I actually thought too.
Well, Mitch, let
Go
me
ahead,
say
Rob.
this. Kentucky basketball, for the longest time, had the major commitment. And then you flip that to football. It just shows you how hard it is to be among the top 25 all-time winningest teams in football and basketball in college. I can think Michigan would be up there, and Notre Dame and Texas. UCLA has fallen so hard in football, they've fallen off a cliff. But having that program be among the winningest of all time. Kentucky's got the greatest tradition, the most passionate fan base of any college program. And I mean, there's some that are close. I would say North Carolina, Duke. I mean, that's a private university and, right there in the triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel
absolutely.
Hill. Yeah. And so that's different. But as a state university, Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana has really fallen hard. I mean, you're right, Jimmy. You alluded to this the other day about Kelvin Sampson. He precipitated the decline of Indiana basketball, but really what did it was them running off the general, Bobby Knight. I mean, look, I'm old school, okay? I think he was so incredible for that state. And Gene Hackman, who's been in at least a million movies, and Hoosiers immortalized Indiana basketball, although that was filmed at the Butler Fieldhouse there in Indianapolis. And Jimmy, have you been, or Mitch, have y'all been to that Butler Fieldhouse, the arena where they did Hoosiers?
Oh, sure. I've been to Hinkle. I've been to Hinkle Fieldhouse. As a matter of fact,
it's incredible.
They're going to play some tournament games there.
Wow.
They're going to play at Butler. They're going to play at Purdue. They're going to play at Indiana. They're going to play at it used to be called Conseco. I don't know, depending on who the sponsor is now. But they're going to play where the Pacers play. They're going to maybe one or two other sites leading up to the Final Four, which will be played at Lucas Oil. But yeah, it's going to be a real spectacle. And if there's any place to play it in one single location, Indy's really the perfect place, because everything's close together for the most part. And even though they're only going to have 25% capacity at each one of these, arenas, it's better than a lot of situations. I mean, the ACC just announced yesterday that they will not be having any fans at their tournament, which is bizarre, since that is the ACC tournament is really what morphed the NCAA tournament into what it is when you had the unforgettable NC State Maryland ACC tournament championship game in '74 that was 103-100, 86 all at the end of regulation. Neither team had a turnover. And at the end of that game, it was obvious to anybody that it was ridiculous that only one team could go to the NCAA tournament. So from that point on, starting in '75, the NCAA allowed more than one team from a conference to go to the tournament, and then it went from 3 to 4 to 5 to ever how many are good enough now. And since that time, I guarantee you there have been at least 20 to 25 national champions that never would have been in the tournament under the old rules. So it was such an important game and how the direction of college basketball was changing.
It is. Mitch, I want to flip one to you. Give us an update right now. I know you're doing the MitchDavisShow.com. You've covered University of Memphis a lot, football, basketball. And yeah, you mentioned earlier, we will be getting a lot into college baseball. Right now, the teams are playing those non-conference games. They pad the stats and all early on. What is give me a report card, A, B, C, D, or F on University of Memphis basketball. I asked this question last week to Gordon Ford, who will be on with us in about 15 minutes. He gave the Tigers a C- or a D. What do you give the Tigers, Coach Penny Hardaway, in his third year?
Honestly and truthfully, it keeps changing for me from week to week. Obviously with the season, it's so crazy. Overall, I would give it a B-. I think there's been a lot of things that haven't gone well, whether that's been James Wiseman stuff that the NCAA botched, or whether that's been injuries or, this and that. But also you have to look at it from the grand scale of things. And Penny Hardaway has done a heck of a job so far. Now, do I think he needs to get an X and O's coach in there to maybe coach these boys up a little bit more? Yeah, I think that an X and O's guy would work wonders with this team. But overall, B-. I think the future is bright. Now it's going to hurt them, but they went 2.5, 3 weeks without playing for the third time in the season. Now they have to play Tulane on Wednesday night at the FedEx Forum.
All right. The number one ranked recruiting class 3 years ago. How many of those guys are still on the team? We know about Wiseman in his 3-game career last year. And the NCAA and Jimmy, and Jake Crane, we've all talked about it. They're going to pick on and go after who they know they can pick on and get away with it. Until you punch back, the NCAA will bully you around. You think Memphis has had enough? And you think Penny is going to be able to build the program out? He had success at East High School, 3 consecutive state championships. Obviously in college, it's a lot more competitive, but he knows that AAU culture.
Well, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, so, I think Memphis is going to fight like heck. I think that they're going to really, truly fight like heck for this thing. And I think that, like a lot of people, they're fed up. They're fed up with the NCAA. What I could see happening in the future is Memphis breaking away from that group of 5 category. I'm not saying, go and join the SEC, but I think Memphis is going to be the leader heading into the future of college athletics to really try to get some type of change at the very top.
Yeah. Jimmy Hodge, what do you think?
Well, I think the fact that the administration, signed Penny to an extension tells you that they're going to try to get to, the upper echelon, or at least be in a position where they're in the tournament every year. I mean, they're going to have strong recruiting classes. I don't think there's any question about that. The big issue is whether or not Penny can, mold those guys into a cohesive unit, because even at the traditional heavyweight programs, I mean, we've watched games this year where, in my mind, you could just see the body language of Hall of Fame coaches that are, they just, the body language just says, man, I don't know what I can do to get these guys to grasp what we're trying to teach them. The shot selection and in so many cases, even this late into the season, just isn't good. And again, I've talked about it ad nauseum. The AAU influence that has seeped into so many of these elite players who are considered to be one and dones, and you have questions about whether they're focused on trying to make their team as good as it can be, or worried about what's going to help themselves be ready for the NBA after 1 year, and whether a lot of these guys are listening to more what their coach is telling them, or doing what they think the NBA scouts want to see them do. So it's really a complicated a situation, and I really, in many cases, think That's why you see so much unpredictability with these teams in the Power Five. You'll have a team that looks great one day, like on a Saturday, and then on Wednesday look like they never practiced before. It's just, I think it's added to a lot of unpredictability, in so many of these leagues.
Yeah, it has. And look, the stopping and starting, we dealt with it in football, and Memphis really had a lot of stop the first game, then a month, and then they go on the road, play to SMU. You take the records for what they are last year. Everybody was in the same boat, so there's no justification. But we do know Alabama, in spite of all that, curb stomped pretty much everybody they played. You can try to tell me, and I hear people say that Nick Saban was out-coached by Lane Kiffin in the Ole Miss game. No, he wasn't. I mean, maybe Kiffin had the plays. Maybe he knew the hand signals that Alabama was calling offensively. I don't know. That was a weird one. But the great ones figure it out. Tough times don't last forever. Tough and smart people do. Life's tough enough. If you're dumb and lazy, life's going to really kick your butt. I mean, you're going to have and it's the same way in football. And Mitch, we got a few more minutes with you're with us. I want to say this, that to me, the one and done culture, and we hear a lot of different opinions on sidelines from Jimmy, you, me, Gordon, Jake, everybody. I would like to see, hey, if you're just going to be a one and done, and really, let's be honest, all these guys are doing is just going to school for one semester, and they're not really they don't go to school second semester, especially if they know they're going to be one and done. It's an insult to the education process. And I got to say, why not just let these guys just go to a development league? And they've got these leagues. Let them go to China or Africa or wherever, or Europe or wherever in the world they want to go, because all over the world, they'd love to have that. We've got it here in America. And then like in baseball, college baseball, you wonder, there's only been one player in the history of the Southeastern Conference ever to be inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And does anybody know who that one player is? Because for the longest time, these guys went straight into the minors, rode around on Greyhound buses, eating Crystal burgers and drinking Ham's beer and bunking with their teammates at the Motel 6, going all over the country. And a lot of those guys just burned out. But now they're going to college, getting an education, but also a lot of really good coaching. But right now, there's only one guy that's ever been inducted into the Major League Hall of Fame who's played in the SEC. Jimmy, I'll give you first crack at it.
I do not know. I think that if Palmero would have stayed away from the, I guess we'll say politically correct,
the juice,
performance enhancing drugs, yes, or the steroid age, I think he very well would have been in by now. And I mean, it was so prevalent, in the mid to late 90s that you had Sosa and McGuire and, all these guys that came into Major League Baseball looking like soccer players. And then in those years, they looked like power lifters.
Well, I mean, you go back to look at Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire. I mean, Sosa had a roof coming over like a sunroof coming over his forehead. I mean, he was on something. It was those guys. It was a joke. I mean, what those guys did. And they just, bottom line, you start thinking about it. I look back at what that did to baseball. That did not do a whole lot of good for baseball. And Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, those two guys together, that was just, a complete mess. But it was Frank Thomas is who it was. So let's do this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to take a quick commercial break here on the Sunday afternoon Sidelines.live wrap-up show. We are broadcasting live from Hot Stone Restaurant in Wynne, Arkansas. And let me say this, hours of operation, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that is going to be Sunday through Thursday, okay? Then you go to 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday. They've got Texas Hold'em on Tuesdays at 6:30 and 7:45, 2 games. Trivia Thursday nights at 7. Man, that is a lot of fun. We play it a lot. Monday, all day. Large pizza for the cost of a small pizza. Lunch specials. Monday, $2 off sandwiches, 11 to 2. Tuesday, $2 off pastas, 11 to 2. Wednesday, $2 off salads, 11 to 2. And online ordering and pickup window available. Website, Hotstone, HOTSTONEAR.com. Happy hour, Sunday through Thursday, 4 to 6:30, 25% off beer and wine. Monday night, ladies' night. Groups of ladies get 25% off food and drink. Leave your man at home, says Audrey's cousin, Ellen. Well, there we go. And let me say this too. One of our sponsors, Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Not open today, but General Manager Justin Wynn, Rusty Howard, Sales Manager Nate, Stacy, Austin Futrell in the service department will be open 9 a.m. Monday morning to 6 p.m. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Fords and Toyotas. They're talking a lot about trade-ins. If you're looking to do a trade-in, the prices are as good as Justin has seen them in 20 years. That's because inventories shrunk, but as inventories build back up, he expects the prices to come down. So they've got them all. Cars, trucks, SUVs. They've even got the Toyota Land Cruiser. He says this is the last year they're going to make it. And if you want to put an order in for a Ford Bronco, you can do it. Check them out on their website, redriverfordtoyota.com. Sidelines.live be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 on the East Coast. Gordon Ford and Jimmy Hodge will be with us after this quick commercial break from Hotstone in Wynne, Arkansas. This is the Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Hey, Gordon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, something's wrong with your phone. When you call in, when I try to merge you in, it dropped everybody else. So let me get them back on the line, okay?
All right. Can we call back?
No. Just hang on the line. I don't know what happens. Every time you call, that happens. Okay, hang on. Okay. All right. Can you go give me a water? Is that water mine? No. Thank you. Hey.
Hello. You've reached the cell phone of Jimmy Hodge. After you hear the tone, please leave a deep.
Hey, call back. Whenever Gordon calls in, it loses that body, but call back. Okay. Let's see. Hey, every time Gordon calls in, it loses everybody else. So sorry about that. I think I told him that. So now I got to call him back because I lost him when you called it. Hang on. Here we go. Let's try it. Gordon, I'm going to try to merge you with Jimmy. We're about to come out of the break. Okay. Stand by.
Right.
Okay. Jimmy, I've got Columbo, Robert Falk on the line. Gordon, you there?
I am here.
Jimmy?
Yeah, you can call me Robert McCall.
I mean,
Robert McCall.
Gordon.
Equalizer.
Gordon, it's 1977 over at Gordon's house. I love it all the time. Hey, Gordon, every time you call in, everybody else gets dropped. I'm like, what's going on? But look, we tell people what you do. Absolutely. All right, we're going to come out of the break here. Audrey, how long? 30 seconds. Okay. Man, I'm telling you.
Crazy day yesterday.
Oh, they're all crazy. They're all crazy.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't believe the performances by Tennessee and Ole Miss. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Especially with what was on the line, especially with Ole Miss. I mean,
your senior guard goes 1 for 15.
Yeah.
You got a problem.
Stand by 5 seconds.
Hey.
Okay.
Oh, no question about it.
Here we go. Hold on. Ready? Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. The best team anywhere. Jimmy Hodge, Gordon Ford. We just had Mitch Davis, host of the MitchDavisShow.com on here with us, talking a lot of college basketball, a lot about that Kentucky-Tennessee game, about that Ole Miss-Mississippi State game. And Gordon, I'm going to tell you what, not too long ago, Ole Miss lost a heartbreaker, and we didn't hear from you for a few days, and Jimmy and I were sending out questions. There was an Amber Alert for you. We didn't know where you were. That was a tough one last night. Ole Miss had been playing really well lately. Tell us what you think happened and what's the takeaway from this. Where does Ole Miss go from here?
I'll tell you what the takeaway is. The takeaway is when your senior guard goes 1 for 15 and you let State just pound it inside like old Kentucky teams, and you can't stop them. And your best center, Kadeem C, he's out there shooting 3-pointers, and he finally just got back. And it's just, Ole Miss made a valiant effort to come back. But when you turned it over as much as they did and missed shots and let them get the ball down low, I mean, that's just a series for disaster there. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Now, where do they go from here? That's a good question. I think, what do they have, Jimmy? 3 games left? They got Kentucky at home.
Yeah.
Okay. They got Missouri on the road, and they got Vanderbilt on the road. I can tell you right now, there's a good chance they could go 0 for 3 because Kentucky, as I said last week, is like Brenda Lee and Radar Love. They are coming on strong. And even though, I think Mitch said they can't get in the tournament, but I think if they won the SEC tournament, which there's some semblance that they're capable of, because all I hear every week is how great Tennessee is, and they keep losing games, and they're a number 1 or 2 seed and all that. I don't see that either.
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm going to throw this one at you. Every year, Rick Barnes, top 5, top 10 recruiting. Yet they just have inexplicable losses. I mean, that to me is a sign of immaturity, no leadership on the team. Rick Barnes is a heck of a coach. He's won at Clemson. He won at Texas. He's from Hickory, North Carolina. He's back close to home. He can't be homesick. He can go home whenever he wants to. But his team, I believe, underperforms. Why is that happening so consistently at Tennessee? And how do you show up flat for a gunfight at the OK Corral, which is Tennessee at home, Thompson Bowling Arena versus Kentucky? Inexcusable.
Well, and they're known for, their defense, playing a physical, intense style of defense. And again, they just got killed by the 3-point shot. Specifically, Mintz was hit 5 out of his first 5 from 3-point range. And, on the first couple, it was, in transition where obviously the defense can't get set. So it's, it's hard to keep track of guys. And at least if you're playing man-to-man, have the guy that's supposed to be guarding him, being able to locate him in transition. That's going to be very difficult. But then after he made the first couple, he made 3 in a half-court game. And how you can allow him to be open after he's hit the first 2 is just inexcusable. I mean, there wasn't anybody within, 5 feet of him, and the rest of the Kentucky guys, Jackson especially, they fed off of that. And Boston, who's come on lately, had a really good game, and even Askew's getting better, who had been taking a verbal pounding from much of the Kentucky fan base. I mean, they are getting better, but I still, I would differ with Mitch in thinking this team's going to make any kind of great run. I mean, they were very fortunate to hang on to beat Vandy on Tuesday when they jumped out to that 17-4 lead and almost blew a 12-point lead in the last 10 minutes at home against Auburn last week. So, I think if it's just going to be really difficult for Kentucky to make a run in the SEC tournament if their respective opponents stay focused for 40 minutes. Yeah, because they're more experienced and they do a team like LSU, man, if you're not ready to play them, they can lay 60 on you in a half. And granted, they don't play very good defense, but when you're putting the ball into the basket like they are capable of doing, and you're not ready to play them from the opening tip, you can be in trouble. Same thing applies with Alabama and, Arkansas. And now with Florida, they've finally been able to start to play some games after a 3-week break from the virus. And Arkansas had to really focused late in the game earlier this week to beat the Gators in Fayetteville.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this one to you, Gordon. When a team, look at Alabama right now, 13-1 in the SEC. They're going to win the regular season.
So.
Yeah, they're going to win the regular season SEC men's basketball championship. That's pretty much a given, barring a complete meltdown. But it's hard to go into the tournament more often than you think. And statistically, I believe I can be backed up by this. The regular season champion doesn't always really do that well, not the majority of the time, in the SEC tournament, because, again, you're starting from scratch. It's like being in the commission business. You may have had the best month in the office, but on the first day of the next month, you're all at zero. Man, it's a tailor-made business for people with ADD and OCD, man. It's just unbelievable. But, Gordon, what about it? Nate Oates, Alabama, second year there. Avery Johnson left a lot of talent at Alabama, but he was an NBA guy.
But then again, he's got a style, Rob. They run up down the floor and shoot it, and players like playing that type of stuff. And, right now, their shooting is, I want to say, who was it that beat them?
Missouri.
Tennessee.
Missouri.
Like that.
It was
Missouri. And they just had, and you can't tell about Missouri either. I mean, they're up and down as well. But Missouri caught them at a time where, they just, when Missouri was hot. And I don't really see I see them blitzkrieging through the SEC tournament, winning it, and going to the tournament and getting a good seat.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy,
I just like the way they play.
Yeah,
they can really shoot it.
Yeah, and they gave that contract extension. Alabama's athletic director, Greg Byrne, was brilliant to do that. Get it out of the way. Don't make it an issue, and don't let it drag on. And Nate Oates is smart to do that too, because you don't need any distractions. You got enough out there with whether it's social media or just day in and day out dealing with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids. We all know that. We all got them. I mean, every time that phone rings, you don't know what they want. Usually it's money, but you don't want them getting in any kind of trouble. Looking around Eric Musselman, Jimmy and Gordon, whoever wants to answer this one, his dad, great 30 plus years, in the NBA, got the great pedigree. Gordon, you're the son of a coach. I mean, you grew up with the clipboard, sitting on the bench. Watching doesn't teach you a damn thing. Doing does. You played, Jimmy, we all play sports. And bottom line, over time, the dumb people fall to the wayside. If you see a guy like Charles Woodson, who won the Heisman Trophy at Michigan back in '97, much to the dislike of the Tennessee and the SEC nation, but he had a 17-year career in the NFL. He stayed out of the spotlight, but he was a heck of a player. Took care of himself. The average career for an NFL player is less than 4 years. In the NBA, you can make it to the NBA. The question is, can you stay there? So look at the European players that come over here. They spend 1 day a week, typically, of practice on nothing but fundamentals, guys. So I'll start with, the coach's son here, Gordon. Why don't more of the American teams, I know why, the AAU culture, you're the man, they've been blowing smoke up them since they were in kindergarten. You're the man, you're the man, you're the man. But why don't they go do it? Because the ones that do stress the fundamentals, and it cost Memphis the national championship with a 9-point lead with 2 minutes to go in April of 2008 when they lost to Kansas. Why don't more of the Americans do that?
Right now, Rob, as you said, AAU.
Yeah,
I mean, over in Europe,
yeah,
they have some coach over there teaching them fundamentals.
Yeah.
You got some dude that you don't even know if he even knows anything about basketball. And a lot of this AAU is people are sold on talent.
Yeah.
They don't really care if you're a good basketball player. You are sold on talent, as a lot of these teams are. And you watch them, the Midwestern players are a lot more fundamentally sound than the players in the South. And, that's just a thing. I mean, there's just, a lot more camps and stuff in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's just not as much as in the South.
Yeah.
Would you disagree with that, Jimmy?
You're dead right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, and I think also the young European players, it's not unusual for ninth and 10th graders to be playing, in scrimmage situations and just pickup games during the summer with professionals. And
That's true.
they just learn fundamentals by playing with them. They learn court instincts. Just I tell you, I don't know if you saw this any of this game, Gordon, but Alabama Vandy. Vandy hung with them pretty much the whole game. Well, you're so Alabama hit a couple of big shots. They were in control of the game. And this is a very experienced player, Petty. I mean, he didn't have a great game yesterday, but Alabama's up by 7 with just a little over a minute left. They get a stop defensively. They transition into the front court. And, honestly, an experienced high school player should know what the score is, what the situation is, how much time's left in the game at that point when you're near the end, and then how much time's left on the shot clock. Well, he could have just held the ball, brought it back out. They could have run another 20, 25 seconds off the shot clock with a 3-possession lead. Instead, as soon as he got it, he takes a 3 from the corner, misses the shot. 5 seconds later, Vandy whips it down to the other end and they hit a 3. Within a 5-second span, you've got a 3-score lead has been cut in half almost to 4. And then Alabama shot free throws horribly in the final 45 seconds and hung on for dear life. They didn't actually have the game secured till they hit a free throw after missing about 5 in a 40-second span to get a 4-point lead and hang on to the win. But just players, just so many of them, even at the elite level of college basketball on the best teams, it's stunning how many times they're not aware of the actual game situation.
Well, let me throw one at you guys.
You're stepping out of bounds. I mean, you watch games through the 80s and 90s. I've never seen as many people step out of bounds. I mean, you should know where you're at all the time.
Yeah.
Like throwing a skip pass in the corner and be out of bounds. I mean, it's ridiculous how much of that's going on.
Well, and how many players are driving the baseline in a close game? You're down a basket, you're ahead a basket, and they get caught in the air and have no place to throw it. You just hope you can find somebody open while you're in midair and just throw it to a spot and hope that a teammate can get there and catch it.
Let me throw one at you, Jimmy and Gordon. What about the guys that have the presence of mind when they're rolling around on the ground fighting for a loose ball to call a timeout and make sure that they're not laying, across the out of bounds line? I mean, you've got to be able to think quickly and just react instead of making dumb mistakes, because that's the thing. That's where fundamentally repetition. It's so true. Repetition is the mother of all skill. And if you don't practice it, don't prepare for it, how are you going to do it?
You had Kentucky play Arkansas about a week ago, okay? And Kentucky has talent. I mean, let's don't kid ourselves. But at the end of the game, they get the ball to half court and turn around and throw it inbounds to Arkansas. I mean, you need to know where your players are at, man. Yeah.
Well, to even make it worse, Arkansas had a double-digit lead with just over 2 minutes left, and Kentucky hits 5 threes in a row to take the lead with 15 seconds left. And on every one of those instances, I cannot understand why coaches also aren't just totally aware that in a situation like that, the one thing that we cannot have or allow is a 3. Why teams don't overplay the 3-point line in those situations.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a 2-score lead. And okay, if they drive by you, then don't foul. Maybe you can get some help from somebody and he can contest it too. But a three is it's one of the most devastating shots to an opponent in college basketball, because not only do you get rewarded an extra 50% on the scoreboard, but psychologically, what it does to the opposing team, and the fact that, again, a 6 point lead can be cut in half, and people just don't seem to be aware that even if you've got a three score lead, you want to at least contest a three, and lots of times it's amazing how many teams fall for that trick. And Alabama is one of the best teams in college basketball at doing it. Get that pass into the low post, notably Herb Jones, and then get the defense to collapse on him, and he just kicks it right out to a guy on the perimeter for a wide open three. And I
know that's a lost art.
Yeah. And so it is. And you can see, as I've said it ad nauseum, that coaches are so frustrated because you're telling them to do this in the huddle and over in practice, and then when you get in game situations, they just lose their focus, or just I don't know what it is. I mean, they throw the ball into the low post and they think, oh, we got to get a guy. We got to stop him from taking a shot, without realizing he's just going to kick it out to a guy on the perimeter that's a deadly 3-point shooter.
Let me ask y'all, who's the best coach in terms of teaching all the right things, especially fundamentals, the staff included, of the top 5 teams in America? I mean, of the programs that win, in the last 15, 20 years, give me your top coach or two. Start with you, Gordon.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Gordon, give me your top coach. And I'm talking fundamentals, teaching everything, smartest basketball coach, his teams consistently, night in, night out, play smart, and rarely dumb themselves, take defeat from the jaws of victory.
I think the best fundamental coach is Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
Defensively, I mean, that pack line.
I had to think about that, but you're right. He is. Yeah. Tony Bennett, man, he is. I mean, you wanted Washington State.
Oh yeah, the Cougars, man. You won't believe how many times I would stay up and watch them till 12-1 in the morning. In fact, one of my buddies said when Bennett was there, he referred to them he said, "Hey, your Cougars are in action," because they had guys that couldn't play for anybody, and they're finishing second and third in the in the Pac-12. And what he's done at Virginia,
they were winning 28 games a year or something ridiculous out there. I mean, Tony Bennett, I'm like you, Jimmy. I would stay up and watch them, and they were, like you said. I mean, they're a fundamental team. They always had guys when they spread it out, and they had shooters. And look at these guys when he went to the national championship. They had 2 guys that were on there. One was a kid
guy, and Jerome and Diakade
on an NBA roster.
Oh yeah, both Jerome and Guy are, and Diakade may too.
I'm trying to figure out where they're at, because one of us with the Suns, they played the Grizzlies. That guy wasn't there last night.
Yeah, and Jerome was with. Oh golly, I'll
tell you, one of us was
the
Sacramento.
Mavericks, maybe. Yeah. And I know Diakade got drafted by somebody, and then Harris, the guy that hit the three to tie the game against Texas Tech in the championship with 10 seconds left. I know he went to an NBA team, but that was the most talented team he's had. But I tell you what, this team he's got with Huff, the 7-footer, and then Hauser, those guys can flat shoot the ball. And man, that game with Duke last night is one of the best games I've seen this year, along with that Michigan Ohio State game today.
Yeah.
I
will tell you, he can coach. I agree with you. He doesn't do a lot wrong. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah.
I'd say Izzo's probably up there too, even though his team's not playing well this year. They those guys are always pro ready there.
Yeah, especially rebounding from a toughness standpoint. That's for sure. Yeah.
Hey,
and their guards are always fundamentally sound. So
let's think about this too, guys. Gordon, you're really good at it, and Jimmy, you too. Who are some of the coaches out there at schools we don't hear that much about? And there's 350 plus that are eligible to get to the NCAA tournament. But there's always those coaches out there that are working their way, like Tony Bennett at Washington State. And you look at the coaches, this guy, Nick Baldado at Arkansas State. What do you think about him? Gordon, I'll start with you. Give me a couple of coaches that you think are going to take their teams and have success in the NCAA tournament in the, closed, confined quarters of
Well, I mentioned
Indiana.
one of them yesterday, Bob Marlin.
Yep.
I mean, that guy's won everywhere. And he went to NCAA twice at Sam Houston State. He's at Louisiana Lafayette. He always has them playing well. And then, like you said, the guy from Arkansas State, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Chris Beard, he kind of got started that way. He was like at Odessa or somewhere like that.
Yeah, that's right.
JUCO, and got the Arkansas Little Rock job. He was let go when Bobby Knight left there. But that guy, to me, you want to talk about a really great coach, and nobody even talks about him, is Chris Beard.
He went to UL. He went to UA Little Rock. They upset Purdue. Yeah, upset Purdue in the NCAA tournament. Then he took the UNLV job, and then 10 days after he took it, Texas Tech came open, and he grabbed it, which was a very smart
you know what he is? He's kind of the Virginia of the Big 12. It plays that great defense, smothering defense. It's not the most exciting style of basketball, but God, they were so close to a national championship 2 years ago.
And their best player opted out at the beginning of the season.
He did what?
Too.
He quit?
Opted out.
Yeah, he quit before the season. Why did he opt out? Why did he quit?
I guess he was thinking about his NBA options, I guess. Who knows what these guys thinking? In college basketball now at the Division I level, you're having 1,000. I repeat, 1,000 Division I basketball players that are transferring now every year. Every year.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, look, again, there's always been reasons why a guy may not play, but it seems like the narrative now is it's the same narrative of everybody gets a trophy. That's a bunch of crap. And I'm telling you, call it what it is. Opt out is the new term for I quit. I want guys that aren't going to just abandon me. And I understand, he's thinking about his future. Yes, because you got 15 or 20 hangers on, like remoras sucking on the belly of a great white shark or, swimming around. They're just, hey, make your own money. Quit living vicariously through other people. That's what the biggest problem is. Jimmy, I'm not attacking you or Gordon, but y'all know it. It's the AAU situation. You start seeing these guys, these ringers in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, carrying these, $1,500 worth of gear and new shoes every other game. And they're, 6, 7 in the 7th grade. It's just, man, that's where all this stuff starts. And if you're a basketball coach, you've got to get down there and swim with the sharks. And that's the way it is. But I want to know about guys that are committed to the team. And I'm not old-fashioned, old school, or that's not corny. You got to have guys that are committed. You can't opt out or quit just because you don't want to. Look, if you're married and you're driving along out in a snowstorm like I saw this past 10 days over here, and your car breaks down, you got 3 or 4 kids in there, you better figure something out real fast. You got to find excuses to win. I'm just so angry at all these guys, and they're coddled. a lot of the people out there, and it just absolutely drives me bananas. Hey, Gordon Ford, we have got about. I know you've got another episode of Columbo to watch, but Gordon, tell people real quick. I know you are in the mortgage business. Tell them what you do, and folks, Gordon knows what he is doing. He makes Milburn Drysdale look like Jethro Bodine.
No, I do mortgage loans, man. Anybody want to refi or buy, give me a call. My number's 901-486-4080.
Gordon, you are a smart man. We will be back with you again throughout the week. Love having your insight, your input, and tell Homer hello and be careful out there in the snow.
He's at the end of the bed right now. He got in a fight with his brother who's sitting beside me in Apache, so they're kind of cooling out here.
All right, be careful, Gordon. Thanks. Riding around in a convertible, I bet. All right. Hey.
Now my convertible snowed over, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's right. They'll let the top come out here. But either way, be careful. We'll look forward to having you on again this week. And always love having Gordon Ford. I've been doing radio with him since 1988. That's now 33 years. Don't ever forget the people who helped you get where you are. You can't do it alone.
Bruce Jenner was a man back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah, doing with Weinberger over there at the studios where we had the coat hangers for the antenna. That was fun. But anyway, we'll talk to you this week. Thanks for being on with us.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
You bet. Jimmy Hodge on here with us. Also, Jake Crane over there in Atlanta. Hey, Jake, we were talking about the basketball situation. And Jimmy just mentioned 1,000 basketball players are going to transfer this year. There's always going to be guys that transfer. But again, from 9 years of coaching, that had to drive you crazy. But tell that story again. You did a podcast. It's coming up with Houston Nutt. I love this story about how many times he had players come to him and talk about leaving, and you take it from here, and then we'll get rolling.
Yeah, well, on your earlier comment, we had some kids that transferred that we were high-fiving once they got out the door, but that's
all right.
But
that's a good point.
Have Houston Nutt coming on here this next week. Really, we talk about it, and obviously the way the transfer portal's kind of evolved, especially here lately, about how he'd have some guys come into his office after they just got there, maybe a month, 2 months in, and say, "Coach, I want to transfer." And he would say, "Listen, I've got no problem granting you a release, but I want you to wait until after spring. And then if you still feel the same, come holler at me." And about probably 80%, maybe more of those guys never walk back in his office wanting to transfer. So, and again, sometimes it's right to transfer, but, these guys that go in there and struggle early, a lot of times if they'll stick it out, they'll find out if they really need to transfer or not, probably a semester or two later.
Well, and you're right. I remember when I was in college, friends of mine on the team at Auburn would go in there. Auburn back then was on the quarter system. In early June or late May, early June, they'd have the talk with Coach Dye and the position coaches about where they fit into the future. And that was before everybody was there. It was just a given you were going to be there all summer. You get the week off at the end of spring semester before summer. The 2 5-week sessions started. And then you would get a week off before you started fall practice. They would go home, most of them, and work. And, a scholarship, Jake, and again, talk about the way it worked. To me, it's not a 4-year guarantee. It's always been, from guys I know, they said it's a 1-year renewable. Now, you say at the
not
leisure.
Anymore. Not anymore. It's not.
Yeah, it's
changed. 4 years, yeah.
I was going to say it's changed.
There was a lot of backlash from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 4 years now for probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that used to be. Yeah, I was going to say that used to be the case, but a lot of schools said, "Hey, we can't really recruit unless we can tell these guys they're going to get to stay." But there's still, if they don't want you around, you probably don't want to be there, do you?
No, and the reason they changed it is because it's national image and likeness stuff coming up. Because it looked really hard in court if you said we're guaranteeing you a 1-year renewable scholarship, but you make no money off your image and likeness. That would have been an absolute disaster. That's really why they changed it.
Yeah. Okay.
But, in every scenario, on every team, in every recruiting class, there's a couple, 2 or 3 guys that it's just not going to work out. Maybe they weren't evaluated. Maybe, they don't fit into the mindset of the team, or it wasn't what they thought, or sometimes kids get lied to. Like, that's just part of the deal. But, I do think, obviously, you never want to incentivize transferring. I think there should be a rule where you have to be at the institution at least a year to be able to see that, especially with all this stuff coming down the pipe. But there's always on every team, I mean, even in Navy and Army and all these other, but there's always a couple where it just doesn't work out for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the service academies, you remember all the controversy, Jimmy and Jake, about when David Robinson, the Admiral, came out. He was a 7-footer, putting him on a sub or whatever. That was going to be, could you imagine being 7 feet tall and small as those bunks?
He was the submarine.
Yeah, he was, but that's crazy. But hey, let's real quick. Jake, Jimmy, national image and likeness. And Jake, we were talking about it yesterday off the air. I mean, we talk about it a lot on this show. Melt is really at the tip of the spear with this in terms of branding and marketing. And the way I see it, I'm all for people being able to make money. I'm just, because of what I do for a living, managing people's, investments and wealth management and a lot of estate planning. The best attorney I ever worked with, God rest his soul, Barry Blackburn, one of my best friends, died March of 2014. Went to Auburn with me, got a JD, an MBA at Ole Miss, an LLM in estate planning at Miami. And he used to say about wealth and money, the first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys. About 95% of the time, unless you make those people work. And my concern is I've got 20 and 22-year-old boys and a 24-year-old married daughter. And I think about this. If when we sit down and have these discussions with clients over the years, over 1,000 meetings, and it keeps growing, they are terrified of that wealth transfer. So why not? And Jake, you start with the answer, and then Jimmy, come back. Why not start and say, sure, you can do this image and likeness thing, but you're going to get the equivalent of cost of attendance like a regular student. And remember, the universities have been there for some of them hundreds of years before you got there. Okay. You're not the only one on the street, but you have that. Sure, you have the right, because this is a free society and I'm all about capitalism, making money. I don't like the government being involved in our lives. There should be a minimum involvement. I mean, but set it up and put that money in an incentive-based trust, age-banded trust, blind trust. So it's there, because if you put 10, 15,000 a month and a 19-year-old kid, I mean, good luck getting him to come to practice. Okay. You get people, if you give people too much money too early, a 21-year-old kid inherits $25 or $50 million. Hey, he was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. You don't want those kind of people around. Jake, your answer to that, and then Jimmy, you answer it.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it's like this. I mean, you say, there's other people on the street, but if I'm Tank Bigsby, there's not one person at Auburn that can do what I can do with the ball in my hands. I mean,
I agree.
I think people that think it's going to be everybody is getting paid aren't really getting the point of what this is. Only the best players, or only the players that they think are going to help their brand, will get that amount of money. And I say, all right, well, if I'm a 19-year-old kid that invents Facebook, they don't ever say, oh, well, you can't give this kid this or this, that, and the other, or something like that. They're going to pay me based off how much I can help them. So the brands are not going to worry. I think what you're going to see is the schools are going to set up, have financial advisors and stuff like that to help these kids. Because again, it's not going to be everybody. It's going to be the best of the best. Gatorade is not going to go to Auburn and be like, all right, give me your scout team. We're about to give them $10,000 a month.
I know
they're going to go and say, all right, this guy, and this guy. My biggest thing is they should get a cut of the jerseys that get sold that now can have their names on them, which that'll be better actually for the universities when it comes down to it. But I do agree that you don't want to just give a ton of money, to young kids. There needs to be a plan. There needs to be advisors. And I think they're going to do it through the school. I just have a hard time saying, all right, well, I'm doing the J-Boy show. It's going really good. I want to get money off these sponsors for my image and likeness, and then say, oh, Tank Bigsby, you're one of the best running backs in the country. there's only a handful of people on the planet in college that can do what you do.
Yeah.
No, you got to wait, or I'm going to give you the cost of attendance. Because if you look, people that say, oh, well, they just need to be getting paid a scholarship, that's worth it. These kids are bringing in way more money to that school than one scholarship. It's laughable to think that Tank Bigsby is only bringing in 60 grand a year. Let him go win the Heisman. Ask how much money Cam Newton make for Auburn. It's amazing. After Cam Newton played, every time I went, and I'm from there, every time I went back home, there was something new being built left and right by downtown. So I think there has to be some sort, and I think you got to trust people a little bit. I mean, it's not like 60 years ago when it was like, all right, well, we got to make sure and watch out for this, that, and that. These kids are worth millions when it comes down to Coca-Cola, Gatorade, all this other stuff. So I think it just depends on how you look at it, but you got to understand that it is a commodity. It is, on demand, and they need to get what they deserve, in my opinion.
Yeah, let me say this before we go to Jimmy. A couple of things. You're right. And I know it's not going to be every player. It may be one or two on a team. You just don't want to have that problem where the wide receiver is going to the quarterback and giving him cash under the table to throw the balls to him. You don't want to lose the locker room. The coaching staff doesn't want to lose control.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they did that, somebody's getting beat up in the locker room.
Yeah.
That's the thing. A lot of these locker rooms, it's not like the Wild West like people think. A lot of these locker rooms police themselves. Like there won't be, if all of a sudden you look and one kid was starting to get way more balls than the other. Now, listen, if it's Kyle Pitts, I wouldn't say a word. They try to throw him the ball every time.
Yeah, I agree.
It would be obvious, and the players would police themselves.
I agree with you. I think that the free market always works itself out. It's when you get the government involved, they could screw up a 2-car funeral. One other thing, you talk about the value that winning the Heisman Trophy brings. I read, and I don't know who wrote this, but it was estimated that when Baylor, Robert Griffin, the third or the fourth or the fifth, whatever it was, RG3, when he won the Heisman Trophy, that had an economic impact in the short term of like $250 million plus on Baylor. Look at their new football stadium on the Brazos River. Look at all the facilities. And you're right. But don't also, forget about these universities have been there for a long time. And they've got and that tradition and that buildup has been there. And I just hope that we don't destroy the game. But Jake, you have eased my mind a good bit. Look, there are a lot of people in the name, image, and likeness business out there that are going to make a lot of money off of it. Now, is that good for the game, or is that good for their bottom line? And you want that medium to be, where everybody, it's a win-win deal. I just don't want to see us blow up the game. And then you're going to have, and there's so many ways you can look at this. The uniform's going to start looking like guys, uniforms they wear, those suits they wear in the NASCAR races.
Yeah. They won't let individual players wear that university jersey with their individual sponsor.
Okay.
Unless the university's getting the cut, and then the whole team's going to be able to wear it then.
Okay. I mean, that's again, this is real time stuff. I mean, you're working over there with Melt. I saw what you and Vince said, and that was great stuff. And Vince is at the tip of the spear, and Kyle and you, this is going to be big. But people can say all you want that people have found other things to do. Well, temporarily, they're telling themselves that. But everybody wants to be back on campus. They want to be in those stadiums. And Jimmy Hodge, what do you think? Great stuff, Jake. That is a great. You did definitely ease my mind. I'm not climbing the walls anymore. I was going nuts over this stuff, but I feel better about it. But Jimmy Hodge, come on in.
Well, I think with the corporations, you're going to see their exposure being displayed inside the respective stadiums. I think watching a couple Arkansas games this year on TV, I think a Walmart was displayed in a couple of different areas, and I think you'll see more and more in that, especially, if you have a gigantic corporation like that that's headquartered, near an SEC school. That's only natural. And you've seen it on these basketball rolling advertisement screens that are often you see it right by the scores table, those advertising messages change. They have it where you can see it for 10 seconds or so, then they switch to another one. A lot of the big sponsors. But as far as the individual players go, yeah, I mean, over the last 25 years, I mean, clearly this would have involved players like, Peyton Manning, Tebow, Cam, Manziel, especially after that Heisman year he had in A&M's first year in the SEC, which, still I think has really helped them, even though he hadn't played it down for them since 2013. But just his presence there made people aware of Texas A&M football. But I think in that case, Jake's right. There's only going to be a handful of players that will personally or would personally benefit directly from this proposal. But I also think too that the school accounting offices and all that, they would have a chance to keep track of exactly how much revenue was generated by the sale of those individual players' jerseys. And instead of having them benefit immediately, which would really put the team chemistry in danger, they'll set up some kind of maybe trust fund where the player can collect revenue maybe 5 to 8 years after his career is over. That way, at least you don't have a problem that can tear a team apart immediately while the player's still there.
Yeah, and Jake, I'm going to throw something at you. I've said for a long time, you think about guys that come for graduate degrees at any school, LSU, Memphis, Auburn, Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, set up an endowment fund. And I've brought this subject up with people at Auburn the last couple of years, multiple times. How powerful a recruiting tool is that, hey, it's paid for if you want to come back and get a master's, a doctorate, PhD in forestry, whatever it is, you cover that stuff. About, I guess, Jimmy, about the Bryant Scholars Program. It was set up for the children of everyone who played for Coach Bryant. Their education was covered, the cost, if they wanted to go to school at Alabama. And, that's had a long-term positive effect. Jake, could you imagine something like that? The PD legacy at Auburn, Pat Dye legacy, cricket, doing something like that, because Pat Jr., we've had him on the show 3 or 4 times here since June, and Pat is brilliant. I mean, he's a sports agent, sports trust advisors there in Atlanta. And I know you got a great podcast coming up with him. Everybody needs to check it out on the J-Boy Show. But think about that legacy. That's the legacy that'll keep him alive forever. That and the fact that, he's buried under one of the tumors oaks out there at Crooked Oaks. But that's the kind of positive stories that we need to be focusing on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm just not going to be the one that tells that person you have to do this for your with your money, or you have to see, because it sounds like to me like what they do in the NFL with your pension and all that stuff's great, but you're collecting a check obviously while you're still playing. I think what they're going to do and what they need to do is what the NFL does when all those rookies get in. One of the first things they do when they go to that organization is they get put in a class about financial advisement. They get taught everything. This is your choices, Roth IRA, this, that, and the other. And I think that needs to be offered. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to be unbelievable for the school's business classes and economics majors and stuff like that. There's going to be a lot of players that are that are given this amount of money. And I think they should have to take or be put into a curriculum that offers at least, like you have to do Spanish 101, 102, 103. Why not make them do that in an economics class? You're going to get this amount of money. Here's how you can spend it, instead of saying, no, we're going to take it and we're going to put it here for you. Because if I'm Devontae Smith and I'm a junior and I'm sponsored by Gatorade and they're paying me a certain amount of money, well, I'm going to go want to buy my mom a car. I'm going to go want to, because again, a lot of this money it's not like they're just going to keep it and go start shooting rap videos or country music videos or something like that. A lot of it is going to be sent back home. They're going to probably move their families in most places out of what's probably a bad situation to a good. And if it's me, I'm not waiting 5 to 8 years, because you can't think about this like we're coming from backgrounds where everybody had money, mom and daddy were always there, everybody was able to pay their bills. Half these kids, they are this good and are this motivated to try and get their family out of a bad situation. So while I think it's, not a bad idea ever to start an endowment fund, we need to make sure that we can let these kids take care of what they need to take care of, especially the ones that come from backgrounds at the end of the day that are trying to make their families better.
Yeah, the endowment.
A guy like Pat Dye Jr.
Yeah.
Pat Dye Jr. had to pay his way through college at Auburn and law school, even though his dad was the head coach. There's some mom and daddies that'll say the same thing. Well, if you're getting sponsored by Gatorade and all this, you can make that car payment, or you can pay that rent, or you can do this, that, and the other. And it helps young people build credit early, which is half the reason that my generation can't afford a house.
Jake, you just gave one of the best arguments for why. You're right. And what I meant by the endowment fund is just and it's not taking their money for the name, image, and likeness. This is about the university building this up for the scholarship athletes. And there's
they should do that. Why not? If you could, why not?
Yeah, like you think about Tigers Unlimited and the great job they do at Auburn, what they call the team behind the team. Every year in May at the end of spring semester, they go to the bursar's office at Auburn, Mary Martin Hall, and they write a check for $18 million, which covers the cost of all the athletic scholarships, which is close to 600 student athletes. So, yeah, I don't want the government or anybody dictating this, and you're right. Like my son Wilson is a finance major at Auburn. He knows a lot of the players, and they talk to him. Jake, they talk to him about this kind of stuff. They do.
Yeah, these kids nowadays, Rob, I'm telling you, this is not like 20, 25 years ago where it just got thrown on. These kids, these 5-star, heck, even some of these 3-stars that think they're going to play in the NFL, most of them want to go into business and branding.
Yeah.
That's why these schools that are offering these classes on branding and shoe building, watch all the recruits they get. It's the coaches that are out front of this. Watch what happens. There's a reason why they keep going to the same places. Watch who's out front of this.
I agree with you. And what my son says, that these players look at the majors that these kids are coming into. There's such a misconception, and it's such a false narrative that these guys are not serious about school. They are. And they are, but
it's
you're right.
Life or death. Like for some of these kids, it's life or death. Like I've seen it with my own eyes, where if I don't make the grades, not only am I screwed, I got to go back and look my family that I promised we were going to make it because I got all the athletic ability in the eyes and tell them why I screwed up. Not everybody, but most of those kids, they go to class. They understand how important it is. There's a bad common misconception out there about the student athlete nowadays. It's bad and it needs to stop.
Yeah, it's a false narrative. And that's why, Jimmy, you remember last spring and all summer we talked about there will be college football because you're dealing with disciplined athletes, Division I, Division II, Division III. It doesn't matter. These are people who voluntarily wake up at 4:15 in the morning to go jump in a trust me, I swim every morning before work in a cold pool. And I'm not a collegiate athlete. I'm just saying they get up to go work out, to lift weights, to do all the things that it takes to be a champion. You're dealing with exceptional people. Keep in mind, there's only about 3,400 kids a year that sign Division I scholarships. And these guys are disciplined. Give them the deadgum credit, because without the discipline, everybody said that the athletes would all come back to campus and party their butts off, and never use the word party as a verb. My sister says, I apologize. But anyway, they would just go out and be reckless. That's insanity. These guys are there. Look, you can make a living with your hands, but you'll make millions with your mind. And we had Johnny Jones, guys, on the show last week, the Munford Flash, one of the great Tennessee running backs in school history. It was a long time as their leading rusher. I said, you didn't just by accident end up at Tennessee and have the success that you did in college and pro football, played a long time in the CFL. It wasn't an accident, was it? He goes, nope. I said, you had to have great family. He talked about his family, the strength, the core. He said, my dad told me 2 things, son. He said, get your education and your word. Your honor is dearer than your life. That's big stuff. But Jake, hell yeah, I am so glad you said it, because that's what I feel. And I know Jimmy, because Jimmy's a student athlete, played college baseball, college football, Louisiana Monroe, finished at UT Chattanooga. Jimmy, come on in. Now, you can agree with us or disagree. This is a free country, last time I checked.
Well, I think this is going to be much like the transfer portal situation when it comes into effect. I mean, once it becomes a reality, you're going to have all kinds of situations that occur. And when they do, it's going to give everybody involved an opportunity to learn what the good parts are of the legislation and what the bad parts are. And you'll be able to fine tune it. And hopefully, between the school administrators, the corporations, and the athletes themselves, they'll before long be able to come up with a solution that's going to be good for everybody. Because that's the definition of a good deal, a good transaction is when it works out well for everybody. So I think if everybody focuses on trying to approach it that way, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I do too. Let's do this, guys. Jake, this is great stuff. Let's continue this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to say this. We're broadcasting live from Hot Stone Restaurant in Wynn, Arkansas. We come over here a lot. Great food. They have the fire pizzas. They've got great pastas. They got the best egg rolls, Jake, Jimmy, you've ever put in your mouth. Ice cold road sodas, full bar. This is the place. I call it the Wynn Country Club. It is Hot Stone Restaurant, Wynn, Arkansas. Hours of operation, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday. They've got Texas Hold'em Tuesdays at 6:30 and 7:45 in the p.m. 2 games. Trivia on Thursdays at 7. Jimmy and Jake, I'm going to get y'all on the phone on a conference call with Audrey and me this Thursday. We're going to win this thing, and I'll split the $10 between the 4 of us. but
just put my chips all in on the first hand, man.
That's right. Right. But hey, Monday all day, large pizza for the price of a small pizza. Lunch specials. Monday, $2 off. Sandwiches 11 to 2. Tuesday, $2 off pastas 11 to 2. Wednesdays, $2 off salads 11 to 2. Order online, pickup windows available. Hotstone, HotStoneAR.com. Happy hour, Sunday to Thursday, 4 to 6:30 p.m., 25% off beer and wine. Monday night, ladies' night. Group of ladies get 25% off food and drink. Leave your man at home, says Audrey's cousin Ellen. So, hey, also, Red River Ford Toyota here in Wynn, Arkansas. They're closed today. They'll be back open tomorrow morning, Monday, 9 a.m., open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., 6 p.m. Justin Wynn is the general manager. Rusty Howard's the sales manager. Stacy, Nate, Austin Futrell in the service department. They are ready to go. They had a tractor out there Friday. We did the remote. The snow has been cleared off. They are ready to go. They're ready to make deals. And if you're looking to do a trade-in, Justin said he's not seen prices this good in the 20 years he's been in the car business. John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis, part of the Red River Auto Group. You know the Dobbs name in Memphis, the Mid-South. They wrote the book on customer service. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Hey, we'll take a quick break. We'll be with you till 5 p.m. This is the Sunday afternoon Sidelines.live wrap-up show. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy Show down in Atlanta. Hey, sua sponte, of your own accord. We'll be right back. Got it. Okay. Hey, Jake.
What's up?
Yeah. Jake, and Jimmy, that's is great stuff on this name, image, and likeness. And I was talking, I watched your thing with Vince. I mean, and you're right. It's just going to be, let's talk about the numbers. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing. And then we're going to talk about recruiting. But by the way, that it's going to be just a handful of players. And what do you think even a number would be on the number of players? We'll talk about that nationwide. If you had to guess, it's going to be for all sports, correct? Men's, women's, everything.
It's just
so it is.
I think it's going to touch everything. It'll be way more for college football and college basketball.
Yeah. Hey, and you're right about Cam. I mean, because I had a kid that I was mentoring through Auburn that was a manager on the team, and he would take him to the Sigma Chi house every Monday, the first 4 games for dinner, and then I think it was after the Clemson or the South Carolina game, he said, Cam doesn't have time to do anything. It's just every minute of his life. You know what I'm saying? But he came back and got his degree. I
wonder how many of those questions he really answered.
Yeah. No, come on now. I mean, this,
If you think Cam Newton went to all those classes and did all that, I hate to break your spirit, Rob, but he did.
No, he went in person though when he went back and got his degree. But yeah, you're right. The thing, he's not dumb, but I tell you what, I think I mean, he's smart, but he didn't do well with the Patriots at all. How much time?
A minute.
Okay, a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean they had nobody on offense though either.
yeah. I mean,
they had me out there running around.
Yeah, I mean they lost everybody. I mean, it was just the perfect time for Brady to make the break, and
Hey man,
Yeah,
Belichick may be a system coach.
hey, I mean, I tell you one thing. It's cool to
well,
watch.
I tell you what though, yeah, but he had the Browns rolling until
I'm just messing around.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll tell you,
hey, 10 seconds.
Best player on that field was Devin White.
10 seconds, guys.
Yeah, he was he
Wait,
had
wait.
a big game.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you, broadcasting live from Hot Stone Restaurant in Wynn, Arkansas, right there on Highway 64, across from the Walmarts, as they call it. A lot of people. Walmart here in Wynn, Arkansas, just over Crowley's Ridge, and got a great show. We try to make every show like every meal that comes out of the kitchen at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. And guys, we're going to have our friend Chef Roger Watson. We call him the Rebel Chef. He's a really good friend of Audrey and mine. Worked for Gordon Ramsay for 8 years over in London. He lives here in America now. Huge Ole Miss fan, 34 years old. He's a Man United soccer fan. And you talk about marketability. The 2 or 3 most marketable or valuable sports franchises in the world would have to be the Dallas Cowboys. I would say Manchester United. I don't know who the third one offhand.
The Yankees.
The Yankees or the Lakers. Yeah. So that's a cool subject. But hey, this is great stuff, man. Talking about name, image, and likeness. I feel like, this is the U.S. Supreme Court, although I've been to the Supreme Court many times when I interned in Washington, when I've been up there to visit. And boy, those people up there, most of them are asleep. And I mean, golly, I know my dad's narcoleptic. I mean, he'll fall asleep in the middle of talking to somebody. But man, this is great stuff. And let's try to get a number. Let me get a great. Initially, it looks like it's going to start in the fall. It may be tabled. Give me a number, Jake, of athletes, and let's look at, say, 5 programs off of Alabama, Southern Cal, Notre Dame, Michigan, and Miami. Off of those 5 teams, Miami, Alabama, Southern Cal, Michigan, and Ohio State. Let's look at those 5. How many of those 5 teams, how many of the football players, and that's where the big money is going to come from, and basketball too, but let's just focus on football. How many would be getting money from a sponsor?
Well, I mean, right now, Southern Cal probably 0 the way they're playing.
They're actually on the way back.
Yeah. Well, the Pac-12.
I know.
Don't get me started on that. I'd say probably 3 to 5. Like Alabama, I wouldn't be surprised if you had 5, maybe 6. But on those, I'd say 2 to 3.
Okay. 2 to 3 from each team. So at the max, maybe about 15.
Yeah, probably at the max, I would say. I mean, it's just. I mean, obviously, I'm spitballing.
Yeah,
I don't know
but it's not going to be, and I know it's not going to be every player. But you just, and you know what? I think that you're right. I think the locker rooms police themselves, and you don't want to micromanage at all. There's a little bit of that. I mean, it's coaching, but I think it'll work itself out. Jimmy, what do you think?
Well, this past year at Florida, you would have had Trask and Pitts.
Yep.
At Georgia, you wouldn't have had anybody until a little after mid season. I think probably Daniels, maybe.
Yeah.
And coming into this year, certainly, and maybe starting next season, maybe Jameer White possibly, and then with Ole Miss, possibly Corral, with his relationship with Kiffin, how they just hit it off, and we had no idea how good a player Corral was until Kiffin came to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying probably, as Jake said, probably 2 or 3 at each school, and there'll be certain schools, maybe not any if they're not marketable on a nationwide basis.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, I heard Hot Pocket was talking to Bo Nix, so.
Well, I also heard that roller skates were talking to him because he goes backwards. He's got to have set the record, Jake, last year. But again, he didn't have an offensive line. We know that. That was a mess. All right, let's throw another one out here, Jake. You've been great recruiting. 80 of your 82 predictions in recruiting have come true. Now, Jimmy and I need the last 3 numbers to win Powerball, and we'll split it with you. Can we get that?
If I knew that, I'd be talking to you from a hovercar.
Yeah, look, man, you're on it. Hey,
So just leaving a Bilderberg meeting or something.
as our old boy Roy Munson from Ocelot, Iowa said, no, it was Ernie McCracken, the Big E. By the way, in the history of TV, the great comb-overs, nothing will ever come close to Bill Murray, the Big E, Ernie McCracken, that comb-over he had.
I think Gene Cady retired.
I was going to say, other than Gene Cady, though, who was a basketball coach. And by the way, was that hair or black paint?
Hey, I got to tell you a story about that, but I'll tell you another one. This was way back in the day, like the late 80s. Sports Illustrated was doing a mock NCAA tournament bracket, and one of the matchups was Bobby Knight's temper against Gene Cady's hair. And Gene advanced, and the comment was, heart starts below the armpit.
Oh, gosh. Man, I tell you, Gene Cady, though, he used to wear, I remember he wore those zip-up boots on the side. He had that comb-over, heck of a coach. And Sonny Smith was talking about, Jake, the game Auburn won in 85, I remember, about 1 or 2 points in the NCAA tournament. But, man, Purdue is kind of, it's a heck of a school. Great engineering from West Lafayette. Let's look here, and talk about recruiting. Dylan Brooks, kid out of Hadley, Roanoke, Alabama, 45 minutes from Auburn's campus. We know the pedigree. His uncle, Cedric McIntyre, came out of Sidney Lanier or Lee High School, all SEC running back, along with Mitzi Jackson out of Defuniak Springs, Florida, in the mid-'70s for Auburn. And then Jarris McIntyre out of Tampa Catholic, who was the son of Cedric McIntyre, came to Auburn, played 0-1-2-3 with Coach Tuberville, wide receiver. And now you have the cousin, Dylan Brooks. But he committed to Tennessee, I think it was April 27th. He was a 5-star, number 1 rated player in Alabama. All of a sudden, he lost a star. He went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Now, I talked to people that had seen him play, and they said he plays 2A competition. The football in this part of the state's not that great, but he could develop into a really, really good player. Talk about him, the mechanics and all like that, and how soon can he contribute to Auburn, which desperately needs to find defensive linemen and especially need a pass rusher. Not just Auburn, but everybody in the SEC.
Yeah, I actually did a breakdown on him yesterday. If you go to the J Boy Show podcast, talk about that thing, and what I've said all along on Dylan Brooks, even when he was committed and eventually signed with Tennessee, was I don't think he is going to be your stand-up buck elite pass rusher. What I think with his frame, he's going to get up to about 265, 270. They're going to put him at strong side DN. He's going to be a plus pass rusher from the strong side standpoint. I think Nick Eason, the guy Auburn hired from the NFL, is going to have a lot of fun with him, being able to teach him some different moves, because while he's not an elite athlete, he's very athletic. But what he has is a great frame. He's got a really good motor. But just like any defensive lineman or offensive lineman coming out of high school, most of them, and especially in his case, he's big enough where he could lean on people, didn't really have to play with his hands. That's something he's going to learn, and the best way to learn that's by getting out there and inside drill and getting your butt kicked a few times. And then you realize, hey, not only do I have to gain weight, I've got to learn about leverage. I've got to understand hand placement, understanding how to long arm, being able to go to different moves in my pass rush bank. So I think he'll redshirt a year, put some weight on, but he has a chance to be a really, really good player. I think he can be a better version of Big Cat from that strong side defensive end spot. I think he's more athletic in his hips, but it's going to take a little time.
Jake, Jimmy, I'm going to throw this one to Jimmy. Look around in the SEC. You look at, Bo Davis has probably been the best defensive line coach that Nick Saban's had at Alabama. And Jake, you made a great point yesterday, talking about defensive linemen, why Auburn signed Nick Eason to be the defensive line coach. Because in the pros, you're right. You said it. All they do is teach technique. Jimmy, why is it so hard for these defensive linemen? And they're hard to find. There are a handful of schools that have any kind of depth of quality defensive linemen. Why is it so dadgum hard to find them?
Well, one reason when you get to that level, trying to get away from all the holding on every play.
Yeah. You're kidding me.
I knew you were a defensive guy at heart, Jimmy. I just knew.
They don't teach that, do they, Jake? God.
I mean, I'm surprised there isn't so much more of that from those linemen on those pass plays.
They hold more than Chase Bank.
Oh, golly, I'm telling
Hold,
you,
please.
man. Especially when it's just out in the open field, and the analysts, they just act like nothing here, moving right along.
Yeah, no need to stop here.
They had to hold for them to have success, man. They're not going to switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is, that's one thing. And I think another thing why they are in such demand is that, even in a four-man front, you're still, you still got 5 offensive linemen on 4 defensive linemen in a four-man front. So unless you have 2 defensive ends that are just lightning quick, in the college game, in my opinion, that's the only way you can get a consistent pass rush, because in the 3-man front, which Bama, of course, is their basic look. But even this year, they went away from some of that, especially later in the season, and went to some 4-man fronts. But, with just 3 guys up front, that you're going to have to send at least a 4th guy, and on a lot of other occasions, a 5th. And you can't send them from the same place every time. So it's really, a cat and mouse game of trying to get pressure on the quarterback, and it's just not an easy answer. Because these coaches are, they all study all of their competitors, all of the NFL teams. They find out what's successful, and they and everybody's a copycat coaching staff. They see stuff that works, they're gonna use it. They don't care if they're the ones that came up with the idea or not. But I think defensive linemen are really the ones that have, they just have the toughest task, because using their hands, lots of times they can get a grip and negate the leverage that an offensive lineman has. But, really, an offensive lineman it seems like has a permanent advantage on them. So you have to try to, especially if you're going to stop the running game, try to get low. You try to, or if you don't use that approach, you try to just, beat your man off the snap and try to eliminate as much of the blocking interference that you can and free up space for your linebackers to make plays.
Yeah, Jake,
but
let me throw.
As far as these guys, Deacon Jump, those Rosie Greer, those guys being studs at rusting the passer from the interior line, for the most part, I think those days are over.
Yeah, and Jake, I want to throw this one at you. You look back when your dad was playing at Auburn, and Tracy Rocker was on that defensive line. Look at Tracy's career stats. Redshirted in 84 out of Atlanta North Fulton County High School. His brother David also was there, was an All-American at the same time he was at Auburn. Tracy's 4-year stats as a starter for Auburn. Remember, he tore his kneecap in the fourth quarter of a 34-7 Auburn loss. Back then, Auburn's schedule was Florida and Florida State, Georgia, and Alabama. Those were the last 4 games. And I was down on the field talking to Joe Pipkin after the game, of course, friend of mine, our family's from Memphis, who was an official for 33 years that did big-time games like Auburn, Florida State, Penn State, Alabama, Miami, Nebraska. He was a consultant later for Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson, and that's where he told me about Tommy Tuberville, they called him back then, 86-93. That first year, he was an unpaid assistant. That's when he got Bebe Ogeron to come down there and join him on the staff at Miami. But look at the stats for 4-year starter Tracy Rocker. Again, he missed the Georgia and Alabama game and the bowl game in 87, but he came back in 88, won the Outland and the Lombardi Trophy. At that time, the first player ever to do that in SEC history. Tracy's 4-year stats were, I believe, 354 tackles, 45 tackles for loss, and 21 sacks. People will say, Joe Passantino, a good friend of mine, Auburn fan, lives down in Parrish, Florida, went to John Carroll High School there in Birmingham, told me, he said, that's because back then the game came right at you. Now the game, they run away from you. Jake, true or false in your opinion? Did the ability for the offensive lineman to hold, is that what did it, or is the game just changed? I think it's changed. I think it's both.
Well, I mean, look, I'll say this. The game has changed a lot. The way you play defense with the packages you put in just changed a lot. The amount guys play in a game has changed a lot. But when I look at, number one, for people out there listening, when you go to a 3 down, that doesn't mean you're just rushing 3. You're always bringing 4. The reason people started going to a 3 downs because they didn't have 2 defensive ends in a 4 down they thought were good enough pass rushers. So they wanted to be able to mix up the looks and bring a linebacker to try and kind of beat him with speed. Jimmy, I do have to disagree with you a little bit on it. I think it's harder for offensive linemen. When you're going backwards, it's always harder. It's like playing corner as opposed to playing receiver. At least if I'm going forwards, number one, I know where I'm going. And number two, going forwards is a lot more natural than going backwards. I think that's why you see guys hold. I think that's why you see guys being called waist benders when they're not able to bend with that defensive lineman. Once they anchor down after going backwards, and that's when they tend to hold even worse or get whipped and give up a sack. But what I think you're seeing now is offenses have changed to the point where if you have a great pass rush or a great pass rusher, I'm just going to go to quick game, and I'm going to get under center, I'm going to run play action, and I'm going to run away from you, and I'm going to run away. And a lot of times, great pass rushers aren't great against the run. So the trick is not to run away from them, it's to run right at them. And just depending on, excuse me, how you look at it as a coach, but having a guy, and especially in the SEC, the game's won up front. That's where the game of football is won. I don't care what anybody says. That's where the game's won or lost. And what you see now from offense is the ability to run multiple protections, whether it's big on big, being able to slide, going max pro, bringing in a tight end to chip. The screen games have evolved, but the ability to say, all right, we're going to negate Jadeveon Clowney by just throwing slants and hitches. We're going to get him tired and pissed off, and then we're going to start working our intermediate to vertical game. I just think the game and offense has changed a lot.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, I agree with that the in passing situations for sure. You know, the offensive lineman is he's in a bind in that situation. But now if you're running the ball, I think you have an edge because you know what the snap count is. Yeah. And I think another thing too is that people don't realize it's just like, you know, in the last 15 years since instant replay's been with us, there's a whole generation of young fans that thinks instant replay's always been around. And the same thing applies with offensive formations. People don't realize until around the year 2000 that people on a regular basis started snapping the ball 5 yards deep to their quarterback. And you were in a shotgun situation. Until about 2000, 95% of the snaps during a college football game were taken by the quarterback directly under center. So until then, the quarterback had to drop back either 3 steps, 5 steps, or 7 before he threw the ball. Nowadays, he's already got the ball without even moving, and he's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he can see everything before the ball's even snapped. So he doesn't even have to back up. All he's got to do is concentrate, hope the snap is reasonably good, and then focus on catching it. And now he's got an extra second and a half that he never had in the old days. So that also makes it harder for the defensive lineman to try to get to the quarterback.
All right, great points. Next question, Jake. Let's start with you. Give me a couple of schools, and y'all made a great one Friday about what school lost the most, and you, Jimmy, and Jake both agreed Florida, of course. And that wasn't a good look having all those players quit on Florida in the bowl game. Now, give me a couple of schools, Jake, that have the most to gain / they better get their act together in spring practice as they head into the fall. We need a couple of schools. I don't care, East, West, in the SEC. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think Texas A&M is really dangerous. I think, and I know people say, oh, well, they went 10-1 last year. That's not really a sleeper. Well, all you're going to hear is that they lost Kellen Mond and they're going to take a step back. I don't believe it. But a school I'm keeping an eye on is Kentucky. And people will say, Kentucky, what do you mean? Number one, I think the East is going to be the worst it's been in a long time outside of Georgia. I think Florida's going to fall way back. But if you look, Kentucky's done what they've done without the forward pass.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yep.
They've been able to win the games they have. Eddie Grand moves on. I think they've got a couple quarterbacks in there. They're going to try and spread it out a little bit. I think Mark Stoops realized he has to. But Kentucky brings a lot back on a defense that I think has a chance to be pretty good, starting with Quentin Bohanna up front in the interior. I think they bring, 6, 7 starters back, guys that were really good players. They're losing a couple. But Mark Stoops, they've got a quiet confidence up there, and if they can put a few more touchdowns on the board, I wouldn't be shocked if they finish second in the East this year.
Yeah, and last year, Jake, in the preseason, Kentucky was the team everybody talked about, that the veteran offensive line, veteran defensive line, yet the forward pass. I mean, they couldn't do it. And it didn't get any better. Eddie Grand got fired. It's time for a change. So good. I just think Mark Stoops has built a culture at Kentucky. People talk about Kentucky basketball. They are spending serious money at Kentucky on football. They looked, didn't Florida go to Kentucky?
Rob, they're starting to believe, Rob.
Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely right. They conceive it, believe it, achieve it. And what they did was they went to Kentucky. Florida went to Kentucky to look at their football facility when they were designing the one they're building at the University of Florida. Who would have ever thought that? Jimmy Hodge, give me a couple of teams you think that have the most to gain, or they better fix some things as spring practice starts. It's already started right now at Florida and some other schools, but it's here.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's got a great opportunity because the university has made the commitment to Stoops, to the sport in general. Their facilities are, like I said, they're state of the art, and but he's built depth up front in the offensive and defensive lines, and that is something you don't do overnight. And Stoops actually said during the 2019 season, he had an NFL scout that he had known for three decades, and he was highly respected. And he said that this is the first time I've ever gone to a Kentucky practice, and just within watching 5 minutes, he said, "There's no doubt this is an SEC offensive and defensive line personnel that you have." And once you start to establish that perception, then, your recruiting is going to remain solid, because we all know the SEC is a line of scrimmage league. And when you get young line prospects that have that dream of playing, in the NFL, and you grow up and in Ohio, and Kentucky's been doing great in Ohio in recent years.
Yeah.
They know they can go to school close to home and yet play against SEC competition with a head coach that's been on a national championship coaching staff. I mean, that says a lot just about, their recruiting a network, how it's expanded. And they get a quarterback that can throw the ball, they are going to be dangerous. And I really like their running backs already. And they definitely could be a contender to finish second in the East. And I tell you what, don't sleep on Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri
Yes.
in the
Yep.
East. He did a fabulous job there. And then again, I'm really interested to see how Arkansas develops, because they just threw everybody off guard by how they were able to compete in every game against Bama. And of course, by that season finale, they were just out of gas. They just didn't have the depth. But if you're a prospect in Texas, North Texas, you got a chance to play in the SEC. But even furthermore, you've got a chance to play early if you've got the skill and talent to do it. And boy, if there's nothing that's more attractive to a young four-star prospect, it's immediate playing time at a school with a good coaching staff, and you're playing against the best teams in college football in your division alone every single week. So I'm really interested to see what Arkansas is able to do, and especially how they're able to develop the quarterback situation.
Yeah, and you know what? Those I agree with y'all. Also, Joey Gatewood, Shoney, Rob Anderson just texted me that one, and nobody's really talking about Joey Gatewood out of Bertram Trail High School down there, Jacksonville, St. Augustine. And I don't know how great of a passer he is. Again, he's more considered the dual threat guy, Jake and Jimmy, but he's a good one. But I look at too at Ole Miss, DJ Durkin. They did get a big time defensive lineman out of the Northeast, but you cannot outscore people in the SEC. That's a prescription for 500 football. Okay. And you got to do better than that. And I'll tell you another school, you look Alabama, they're going to be putting a new quarterback. And Jake, you talked about it, Bryce Young out of Mater D High School out in California. He's 5'11", 6 feet. He's not all that tall. He's a super athlete. Alabama has so much talent. It's silly to say it, but it's true. Just replug and reload. That's what they'll do. And then you look at Auburn, they've got to fix the offensive line. And Will Friend, talk about it, is an offensive line coach, played at Neshoba County High School over there in Philadelphia, Mississippi, teammate of Jeremy Pruitt, was with him all 3 years at Tennessee. Jeremy's gone now. That book has not been written yet on what happened. Philip Fulmer, the whole Tennessee cabal, they're going to be a lot. And I'll make a prediction now. Jeremy Pruitt will get most, if not all, of his buyout. Okay. And there's more to Jake, you're right. I always give credit to people who say it. The bags of money and McDonald's bags gives new meaning to the term dollar menu. I'm not sure that was all about Tennessee. I think that's directed at some other schools. There's some interesting stuff happening out there that is developing. There always is. But I want to throw this one. Jake, Brian Harsin, working with Bobo. We talked about this the last couple of days. Bo Nix. I jokingly say he's a lot like Chad from Karate Kid. That's a guy. And I remember what you said about when he came off the field in the South Carolina game when Auburn lost, barking at Chad Morris and his teammate Seth Williams. And Jimmy, you're right. Don't do that to the guy who's your best player, probably. That or Tank Bigsby.
And who's a way better player than you are.
Yeah, that's right. And Jake, you cracked me up when you said it, but knowing you, I would believe it. You said they'd have had to hold me back because we'd have been going at it on the field if some player got in my face. And I don't dislike Bo Nix, but he's the son of a legend. And I don't think, and you said this past week too, again, always give credit where it's due. And you said that competition it is. I absolutely believe competition is the spice of life. You get competition in that quarterback room at Auburn, that's going to make Bo better. But if Bo knows, hey, I've got this, that's a real problem, because complacency is the root of all evil, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Bo Nix is a hard worker. I think he's a grinder, but
Yeah.
he's a human being, and competition makes everything better, and it lets you know, hey, not that it's been a free ride, but you're really going to have to earn it, because there's no connection between this staff and his dad the way there was with the last one. And look, Bo Nix has a chance to be a heck of a quarterback. He's got all the tools.
Yeah.
But I do think he needs a guy that can push him in that room to make him really go out there and earn it. I think it'll help him learn the offense better. I think it'll, send a message to his teammates, especially the new ones, because the players know. They're at practice. They know who the best quarterback is. They know who should get the job. And it's hard for a coach, to go against that, because you lose all your credibility. So I think it's a win-win for Bo Nix and the Auburn football team if they get some competition in there.
Yeah, competition's nothing but good. Hey, guys, look, we have run out of time. This has been awesome. It's like taking a drink of water from a fire hydrant when we get going on here with Jimmy and Gordon, Mitch, Jake. This is what we're here for, is to put out great information. And Jake, real quick, tell people first off how they follow you on the J-Boy podcast, and give us a little preview of what's coming up this week. You've had some great interviews, putting out great stuff. We're both, bottom line, trying to get out great information to the fans who love this game. They love all the games, but it's not about getting it first. It's about getting it right. And that's what I love about what we're trying to do. And you certainly are a classic example of getting it right. Hey, 80 out of 82. Again, Jimmy and I just need the last two numbers. If you give me those for the lottery, I'm betting on it. But anyway, tell people, give us a preview of your podcast coming up this week and how to follow you.
Definitely. No, Rob, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate coming on. You can find us, go to YouTube, The J-Boy Show, THE space, JBOY space, SHOW. Go ahead and hit subscribe there. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's spelled the same. Got a great one with Pat Dye Jr. tomorrow. He's telling some stories that have never been told, especially about the last time his last person he talked to on this earth was Bo Jackson. I think it's something everybody, would enjoy and love to hear. We got Coach Houston Nutt, Cole Kublik, Josh Pate, John Parker Wilson, Dane Bradshaw. If you like sports and you don't want to hear about politics and want to learn something, check us out at the J-Boy Show. But Rob, I always appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, one bit of trivia that only an idiot savant like myself would know. Dane Bradshaw and Paul Feinbaum share something in common. They are both
high school, right?
They're both graduates of White Station High School, the Spartans in Memphis. It's just crazy. But anyway, hey, Jimmy Hodge, Jake Crane, to everybody, to all of our sponsors, to our listeners, thank you so much. We're here to serve you. Your honor is dearer than your life, folks. And I'm going to tell you something. Follow us on Twitter at sidelines.live. We're looking for our website. Check us out on the sidelines.live. We're there. We're there for you every day. And bottom line, if you've got topics, things you want us to cover, information, that's what we're here for. We also like to tell the great stories, and we put out podcasts here on sidelines.live. We'll have several this week. We're getting the internet back, the interweb, as Al Gore would call it, this week. It's above freezing up here in Arkansas. We've had 18 inches of snow in the last 8 days. Incredible. But we'll be putting out some podcasts this week, covering a lot of topics. We got some surprises coming up here. Again, never until you got it confirmed, but try to put out great information. But anyway, sidelines.live. Don't quit because you're tired, quit because you're done or out of time. And to everybody out there listening, thank you, and God bless America. We're out of here.
Sidelines underscore
Oh, did I? Hey,
for the Twitter.
yeah, did I give Twitter gave the wrong thing? Sidelines underscore live. Hey, Jimmy. It's like, how do you remember all this stuff? Anyway, that was fun. Good Lord, that was a lot of good information, man. I thought that was cool too. The Kentucky thing, and we could do a whole podcast on that. You know what that is they can kill all those kids, like you say, in northern Kentucky, in the big. They don't want to go to